makeup class for the image architecture.
So, oh, sorry.
Yes, are you in that class? With the tutorial.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. You cannot attend all the time. You just attend this.
So Amanda is still in Indo.
She is doing it on tomorrow, 11:30, room 229. If you want to go to hers at that time.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can join us. Up to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's up to you. Okay. So tomorrow, 11:30. For her. Okay. Okay, so we'll start. I think most of you have finished your assignments for the photograph. Yes. So because today is you have to hand it in today. I wish this was on Monday, so you have some time. But in any case, I will still talk about photographs, just to give you more idea about photograph and architecture, like the last lecture that Sonia did. And probably this lecture he is going to talk about video, like film. So probably this is somehow related. So as you can see, he showed you this villa rotunda in the lecture, right? I think you remember. And if you search for this image on the web, you can see quite a lot of different angles of photographs. Yeah. I'd like you to somehow choose what you think is the best photographs for this building. Okay. As you can see, you can find a lot of different images of the same building, but there are some that are better than the others. Right? So just by looking at the photographs, which one do you think is a good photograph of the building than the other? There's a definite difference between a good one and a not so good. So can someone point out which one is a good photograph? And there's a reason. So which one do you think?
I think it's the fourth one.
This one?
Yeah.
This one is good.
Well,
Okay.
I think it shows a certain angle, not it's from the front of it.
From the front. So it's a very straightforward frontal image, right, of the building. Okay. So what about the others? Any thoughts? Are you maybe you choose something else? Which one is good?
I like the third one.
Good.
The third one.
This one?
Yeah. Because I think it includes two perspectives.
And on the side of the building, right?
Yeah. And it gives different feeling.
Different.
Because we see this building from the side, not only
Right.
from.
Okay. Interesting. Anybody else think differently? So these two only? Any thoughts? Yes.
I like the first one in the fourth row.
This one?
Yeah. This one also, I think, show different perspectives of this building. Also, this includes some like surroundings of it.
Okay,
We
some
can see
surroundings.
the garden, also the path leading to their entrance.
Okay.
So this provide me with a more like general view of the building. Like
So you understand the building
understand
a bit
more,
more.
like where it is, or yeah.
Okay, good. Now, for architectural photographs, right, specifically for architecture, there is some way to describe the building better in some photos than the other. Right? And of course, there are two different types of photos in this selection here. As you mentioned, the first one is this frontal view, right? Straight ahead. So this one also, this one, okay, and this one. Now, so we should separate the two types, right? In terms of seeing the side of the building, there are a few of these, right? So I think, yes, if we're talking about a frontal view, this is a nice photo, but again, if you look at this, the angle is very different, right? Because you see a little bit on the side of the building, the proportion, right? So in a way, if you take a frontal view of the building, it's good to stand back a little bit, so that including all the different elements, the proportion. This one is taken for a wide angle, sorry, and you don't see the side that much, right? So, but the atmosphere is nice. You create atmosphere, but unless you want to document the front, the corner, right? But you don't really see the side of this building. So, if we're just talking about the frontal view, it's always good to be able to see the elements of the architecture, right? So it's always good that the sun comes in, when the light can show the shadow and the bright part of the building, so you see the kind of differentiation of the building. All right. Now, about another type of the photo is the side view, right? So there are quite a few of these side views. Yes, this is quite nice in the sense that you really see the garden a bit more, right? And also the sun kind of comes in and then you see the shadow. So that when you see the shadow of the building more, you get a sense of the mass, the volume of the building, right? So in architecture, it's always good to choose the time of day to record a building under certain light, right? So that besides seeing the bright part, you see the dark part, right? Like this is kind of dark, right? Very dark. Like this is dark, right? So you don't see the contrast between the front and the back, right? Also, it's nice, of course, to see the surroundings a little bit more, right? So that people understand where this building is placed. Right? So in architectural photographs, there are certain ways to capture the building that is that's really show the volume and the shape of the building very clearly. So it's always good to choose the best time so that the dark and the shadow and the bright part kind of create a very strong contrast. Right? And of course, sometimes when it's too dark, you can't see these details in the shadow. Like this is kind of dark. There's no sunlight. The photograph doesn't stand out. Right? So, and also there is some element that you notice about these photographs that is very different from this. So, what do you think are the difference when you look at this one as compared to some others? Can somebody notice a very subtle difference? Let's say this one and the rest. see any subtle difference between the you notice this one, right? And then this one also. And between these two photos and the rest, there's a very subtle difference. I wonder if you notice something. Any thoughts?
The weather is different.
Huh?
The weather in which photo is taken is different, so there are different lighting.
Yeah, of course the lighting is different. But in terms of the angle, do you see these as kind of different from these?
These two pictures are taken from above and other
Like this, right? So you're saying because it's lower, then you can see the building kind of tapered a little bit, right? So in terms of architectural photographs, it's always good to be able to take a picture that has this straight wall parallel to your frame edge. When you tilt your camera, the building will taper a little bit like that. And it looked less professional. Normally the photographer will try to align the camera so that all the building straight line looks straight. And even though you take one of these, you can still adjust this in Photoshop to distort it back to a normal straight line. So it's kind of like a convention of architectural photographs. So now you get a sense of when you're taking pictures of architectural space, there is a way to capture the space and the image, and also more aware of the lighting. Right? I'm going to show you a famous architecture photographer. His name is Julius Schumann. I don't know if you have heard of him. Okay, so if you get a chance to look him up on the internet, you'll see the series of photographs that he took. So these are Julius Schumann's photographs. As you can see, he specialized in architectural photographs. Right? And I specifically like to point you to this particular photographs. This is just like the photograph of my cover book. Okay? So this is one photograph that not only make him famous, but also the building. Okay, so I'm going to let you pass around just to take a look. So I want you to understand that not only the architect or the building itself influence how people see the architecture, right? But sometimes the photographer plays a very important role in showing the architecture to the general public. And Julius Schumann works in the mid-century America in the West Coast, and somehow he took a lot of these black and white photographs for architect. And he, of course, eventually he was able to work with very famous architect. But this one particular photographs make him world famous. So there's a reason why, right? Why this particular photographs is so become a kind of icon of American West Coast architecture. right? So what do you think about this photograph? Why is it considered a kind of icon? It's not very sharp, this one. So you can see it on the cover of that. So what do you think, why this particular photograph makes it so, why is it so famous? What attracts people so much about this architecture and the building or the location or the mood, right? What's in there? What do you see in there? Let me try to find a more sharper version. What seems to why this image of an architecture become iconic? You know, what's inside the photo? What do you see in this? This is in Los Angeles, the west coast of America. Okay. Anybody been to Los Angeles? Oh, okay. So if you don't know Los Angeles, maybe just by looking at the photographs, there are some quality behind it that make this become the iconic, right? Iconic means that people kind of worship it. Something that is nice, people agree upon, the quality of some kind of ideal, right, inside the photographs that promoted by the photographer. Of course, the architect built the building, but somehow it's the photographer who kind of create this ideal image, right, of a certain lifestyle. So, what do you think the quality of this photograph? What makes it that people kind of celebrate the image? What quality it has possessed? Any thoughts?
It has a sharp perspective and a great vanishing point.
Very strong perspective, right?
Yeah.
Looking from the very close by and very far, right? So it's a very powerful photograph, for one thing. It really shows the relation of this house to the landscape behind. So that seems to be a good quality of a good photograph by itself. But what about the content of the photograph? What does it want to show people? Right? This photograph was used in lifestyle magazine, in architectural magazine, and somehow it's more than just an architectural photograph. It's more than that. It's become representing a kind of American ideal. Why is it such a step? Why it becomes like that?
The architecture is the central and the city is the background.
So the architecture
It's
is
the central of
the center of the image, but it really shows the quality of this building, right? You can tell that it's a lot of glass, and from the glass you have an incredible view, right? So first of all, the building itself is situated in a very nice spot of the city, so that you can have a nice view of the city, right? That's a very basic quality of the content of that building. At the same time, when you look at these people, what if the photograph without the people? What does the people really adds to the photograph? What do you think?
it makes the photo real.
So it makes the photo view. So if it's without the people, you think it's like a model. So when you place the people inside this building, people realize this is a real place, a real building. It's not a setup, right? It's not for a movie, so it looks real. But what about the way they relate to each other? What kind of atmosphere the photographer is trying to project? Elegance, like they dress very nice, right? Even though it's like maybe after dinner, they still kind of dress nice so that, and also they kind of casually talking to each other. So they project a very relaxed, nice style, and also kind of inviting friends over, and they don't look out to the sea as if this is part of their life, very normal. So the photographer deliberately, but also undeliberately, set up this scene. It's very interesting. The story behind it is quite interesting. He actually spent the whole day during that time taking photograph of the building. Right? So this is probably the daytime, and he took a lot of different sets. Right? This is one of the color photograph he did. Right? And you notice more of the building. This is basically a glass box, and in front there is a nice pool, right? So when he take the photos from that angle, he captured the whole building, and then you can see the city behind, right? So this is a more recent photograph. So actually, the story behind of this building is like this. When the couple bought the land, nobody thought it's a nice spot at that time in Los Angeles, because you have to go up the hill, you need a car, and it's very hard to be part of the city. But the view is very nice, so the architect built them a very simple house. And then afterwards, the magazine wants to capture something and ask the photographer to go there. And when they were taking photographs of the building for the whole day, it's just a basic record, right, of the place. But when during at night, the photographer was preparing to pack, he noticed the two women just talking there, someone's girlfriend, casually. And then the assistant tell him, let's take a picture at that moment. Right? So without consciously setting up the scene, he kind of captured one moment of that place, and eventually this photograph become the most important photograph. So it's a very interesting story behind this. He's not specifically setting up this thing, but kind of carelessly taking photographs like that. And then it turns out to be the most important photograph of that day. Right? So as you know that in architecture and in photograph, sometimes we deliberately set up how to shoot the building, but sometimes it comes as a kind of lucky accidents. You capture something that is very beautiful. Right? But there's definitely a skill of, as a photographer, in order to capture that particular moment. Right? When the woman was just talking there, if he's not skillful, then maybe the exposure is wrong, the angle is wrong, because it's just by the moment. Right? So it's very interesting how the photograph comes about. So I'm going to show you a clips of Julius Schumann, just to get you to know a little bit more about architectural photography. Now, during that time when this photograph was taken, the background is after the war, right? And America wants to build these houses for the middle class people. So if you search for case study house, number 21, this is the particular house that was made famous. Okay, so I will select one to show you. So some architectural students do some research of the house, and she created a model, right, of the house, and you can see how the space is so simple, and yet this house become this poster image for the mid-century American architecture, and it really projects the idea of the good life, right, in America, in West Coast. And there is this whole cultural background behind it. So we take a look of what's behind it. So this is right after the war, maybe 1950-ish, right? And that's when America comes back from the war. So at that time in America, things are very optimistic, right? And these are the time when those houses are built. And this is Los Angeles in the West Coast, right? And Los Angeles was where the movie industry was, right? So there's a strong popular culture background.
Arts and Crafts magazine founded what was going to become the most influential residential experiment the U.S. had ever seen. 38 houses and 2 apartments stretched over a period of 21 years, and fueled by a continuous passion for the new, this program could only have existed in one city, Los Angeles. Between an impossible building plot and the demanding owner with a vision of his own, the architect, 32-year-old Kal Ng, embarked on a project that had fixed the finest champagne taste on your budget.
So this is that house.
Published the 1960 June issue of Arts and Architecture magazine, case study house number 22, Winsdale House, became the most iconic production of the entire case study house program. These black and white images showed more than just a home, as it embodied the vision of Los Angeles as the future. And what a vision it was.
So this house was so famous, it was used in a lot of commercials and movies, right?
A house, seemingly without a straight L shape mounts the steel structure of the house. An unusual
So
building
this is the
material for
architecture,
its time,
right?
but the
The
only
simple
one that
architecture
can offer a
itself.
staggering and uninterrupted 270-degree view that plot demands. Completely closed to the street but fully open towards the city, it's divided into two clear areas of night and day, where the kitchen acts like a pivot between them. The roof looks as if it's supported just by glass, while the entire house doesn't have to speak of gravity, as it's too busy admiring the view alone.
Okay, so this is the architectural part, right? But it has to take the photographer seeing a certain way to bring out
Countless photo shoots
the
of
quality
found
of
stall houses that deal with
the architecture, right?
The
The angle
interiors
he
didn't
took.
even need much to quickly look spectacular, and it would be here that celebrated photographer Julius Schulman would take the architectural photo of his career. The image, showing two silhouettes carelessly chatting while the house was hovering over its city at night, was forever embedded in the American culture, winning prizes and admiration even decades after it was taken. Even today, the case study house celebrity reenactment Stephen Klein makes shows, an echoing Schulman influence. The case study house program was so influential at the time that even Hugh Hefner became interested in this idea. He launched a similar quest to find the perfect Playboy weekend hideaway. The similarities was evident. The California cool living style was captured, praised, and criticized in many domains, including art. It's no accident that the backdrop of Hockey Pool and the Splash should be a Casey study house, said the commentator, as its steel frame offers a kind of shorthand notation for all that's good in Los Angeles architecture. Some artists, like Sam Durant, even took apart the program's utopian ideal and imagining its decline and degradation. Hollywood, however, tried to portray the drama of its possible.
So I will stop here. So that's the architecture. Now back to Julius Schulman of his photographs. So when you look at his photograph, what are the general quality of his photograph? You have a lot of black and white. If you just look at the black and white shots, what seems to be, there's a quality to it. What are they? What do you see? Black and white, black and white. It's all black and white photographs. Besides the famous one, but all of these are taken by him. Any common quality that his photographs show? Any thoughts? Entirely, almost in all of the photographs, there's a general quality that has. Remember the Palladio photo I talked about? This has a similar kind of, even though it's black and white. Palladio Villa was color, but most of these are black and white. But they're showing similar quality. What do you think they are? Yes?
Clear boundary
Clear boundary between
between the architect and the background. And
so there's always a background and then the foreground, very strong space, right? Showing, and it's also always shown very clearly, right? And you can notice the high contrast of the photographs. Very dark, and when it's bright, very bright. Right? So there is a very strong range of light and dark. So it captures the lighting of the architecture very beautifully. Like this is at night, you can see the inside of the interior, but also you see the silhouette of the landscape. Right? Very dark, but very bright. So the contrast really show the architectural elements, right? So in a way, you can do that too. If you are taking a specific photograph of a building at the right time, right, so that you get the right lighting. At the same time, he used a specific filter for his photographs. If you take black and white photographs, such as if you do it in a smartphone, if you use a red filter, a red color filter, okay, then what you have would be the dark one will be very dark, and the bright part will be comes out very bright. So it's created this incredible contrast of his photograph. And if you use the red filter, the cloud in the sky really show up. So you create this incredible contrast that very powerful architectural photographs. So that's pretty much his trick. But at the same time, you notice that all of his building, he followed the same convention as having the straight line aligned with the sign of the foot. So it's always shaped that way, right? He never take a whole photograph that is tilted. So that's a way to show an architectural space. You can see this straight line always aligned with the edge. So it really shows the architectural elements. And instead of tilting up or tilting down, you illustrate the space that way. So I hope this kind of helps you to, next time if you take the photo, even with your smartphone, right, you are more conscious of bringing out the spatial and architectural elements in a photograph. So I maybe you haven't done your assignment, but I'm assuming that you're pretty much done with it. So I hope this little bit helps with your composition of a architectural photographs. And at the same time, it helps you to understand by looking at the space through photography. It also helps you to see the architectural quality of the place. So it's not only the space built by the architect, but how people see it. That's really like help them to shape what they think about architecture. When you think about that iconic image that influenced so much of West Coast architecture, this means a sort of good life, right? People want to live up on the hills, they want to have a glass house, a nice view, so they can invite friends. It implies a lot of these cultural values behind it in one single photograph. So that's why this image was made famous by the Americans. They want to promote that kind of culture, a good life in the West Coast, especially in Los Angeles. So I hope that you understand a little bit more about the image behind the architectural photographs. All right. So, any questions about taking pictures? And any thoughts about visiting Los Angeles, maybe? Does it give you the momentum to want to see the house, maybe to visit the place, right? I will show you, since we have a little time left, maybe I'll show you on Julius Schumann on YouTube. If you search for his name, you can probably know about him a little bit more.
You need a website. Why not do it yourself? With Wix, you can create your own professional website. Hey everybody, my name is Ted Forbes and welcome back to another episode of The Art of Photography. And this week we are actually recording in the wonderful city of Los Angeles, California. I'm here for a conference and I was thinking the show this week, and if you've ever been to Los Angeles, you understand that you do a lot of driving out here. Nothing is very close to anything else. And you see some really beautiful stuff. And one thing that I have noticed the last couple of days is this wonderful, mid-century modern 1950s style of architecture that really permeates through the city. That you continue to see even today. Just kind of the spirit
Choose
of
another
that
episode.
goes on. And I thought it would be really cool to
Keep
cover.
talking a bit. So this is the guy who took the photographs. He's an old man who died a few years ago, and his photographs was made
Whatever I
into
do in my photography,
a few books.
my exercise is to ensure that my composition spells out how you can enjoy this kind of architecture. I photographed that house in 1947. That photograph is one of my icons. Gosh, wouldn't it be nice to live in a house like this? Then Natasha calls me one-shot showman. I take one negative, black and white, one transparency in color. I've got another showman masterpiece. That's my modesty.
Facing people in the picture.
When
So
I began my
that's
work
important.
with architects and magazines, I observed that very few photographers use people. So I said to myself, well, my gosh, if I'm going to photograph architecture, I want to show architecture being functional. And I use people in all sorts of ways in my photographs. The moment a person appears in the picture, it entices the audience of the photograph to see another dimension of architecture, as how the house appears to the people who live and work in the house. I'm a merchandiser. I'm merchandising architecture. All these photographs tell a story. This is one of my most successful case study house photographs, mainly because it has people in it. The young lady had a cocktail glass in her hand. I had to raise that glass. It makes all the difference in the world where your hand was placed. This is one of the case-study houses in the Hollywood Hills. I planted that man with the binoculars to add a little bit of human scale
So
to
you
that
put the
scene.
guys over there. Let's see.
Imagine doing this work for 77 years. I'm still at it. At the age of 98. There's no limit to what you can do with photography. Any art. Photography. That's the story of my life.
Okay. So that's it. Any thoughts? Then we are done. Okay. So hopefully you got something more out of today's lecture also on film. Right? I think Sonny will be showing you some film. So this is photography. Film will be more complex